In this video, I just want to have a fun little chat about Micaiah, or rather the new green Brave Micaiah, the red Dancer Micaiah, and then the original blue Micaiah. Also, I want to compare Brave Micaiah with Yune herself. I did choose Brave Micaiah as my Choose Your Legends pick, and oh boy, I had some fun with her already. As you will see, the gameplay for this video is going to be the Micaiah gang plus Yune taking on Infernal Death Knight, Infernal Walhart, and then Infernal Berkut. I was really just planning on making a dumb video about how Brave Micaiah can absolutely slaughter the Death Knight, but it turns out that the other two Grand Hero battle maps had more cavalry units, so I thought let's see if I can clear these maps with a full Micaiah and Yune team. Probably some of my most satisfying clears just because every unit contributed in every fight, and you get to see every version of Micaiah shine thanks to her armor and cavalry dual effectiveness. Brave Micaiah performed spectacularly, although she didn't get to do much against Walhart. That said, as you'll see later on, she just destroys Berkut's map since she can tag almost everyone with her debuffs. I did also try out Brave Micaiah in a few arena battles, and as expected, she pretty much nukes any blue army unit, and guys like Reinhardt should be no problem for her. One thing that has surprised me is how strong ground orders can be, her C skill. I never got the chance to use it before, and I would say it's pretty great when it works. It requires a bit of planning since you can only give the warping effect to adjacent allies, but when you have weird maps like many of these Grand Hero battle maps, then it can be very clutch. I use it against the Death Knight to get Dancer Micaiah out of the way so regular Micaiah can one-shot the Sword Cavalier. While I ended up using Attack Ploy in many of these fights for her Sacred Seal, I am very strongly considering upgrading the Aerobatic Seal. While it requires you to use with mixed teams, I have been using it beforehand on Legendary Azura and Flying Nino. It just opens up a lot of movement options and attack options, and it combos very well with ground orders. If I wanted to do the same with a Flyer Emblem team, you can just use Flyer Formation. Moving on, do I think Brave Micaiah is the best Micaiah yet? Well, to be honest, I didn't pick her as my free unit because I thought she did things better than her two other versions. I really just enjoy how Micaiah plays, being able to nuke armor units and cavalry units and still be a decent mage tank as well. Brave Micaiah pretty much fills the exact same role, just in the green spot. Now I have Micaiahs to take on any color, bar colorless, and she can fill a couple roles thanks to the dual effectiveness of her weapon and her high res stat. All three Micaiahs do offer a few different things however, and Brave Micaiah has her flyer mobility plus her fondness of stat debuffs. A flying mage is just spectacular for PvE content, and while Yune's whispers may not always activate, it's deadly when Micaiah gets those debuffs. She does have to watch out for archers though, and that's something regular Micaiah handles much better. As a reminder, Thani reduces the first attack from ranged armors or cavaliers by 30%, and you actually get to see that in action in the Walhart Grand Hero battle. While I usually use Death Blow on that Micaiah, I swapped back to a good old Distant Defense and Quick Repulse build for this specific battle. Last, I want to talk about Dancer Micaiah. Honestly, she's just so good. Having a support unit that can just nuke green army units is a godsend, and I love having her around. I think she is one of the most unique units you can have, and if you've been watching the gameplay, none of this would be possible without her. Now I want to discuss Brave Micaiah's usefulness compared to Yune's because they are extremely similar units but function a bit differently. You will notice that Yune does a ton of work in all of these battles. Her stats are pretty identical to Brave Micaiah and they are both flying green mages. While I would love to use the both of them together for most situations, it's probably just not going to be necessary. So if you had to pick one, who should you go with? For Brave Micaiah, it's pretty obvious that she is your go-to for facing large amounts of armor or cavalry units or even both. Because the effectiveness multiplier is so high, she usually just one-shots a lot of them. While I was talking about Brave Micaiah in my last video, I mentioned that her average speed stat shouldn't be ignored. The reason being that Yune's whispers debuff enemies for -6 speed, and then that allows Light of Dawn to give Micaiah +6 speed. Micaiah won't be a super speedy mage all of a sudden, but with a speed buff or speed increase in skills, she can take advantage of this to get even more follow-ups. Here's the thing though, Yune also thrives on debuffs, but she only needs the enemy to be affected by any stat debuff, and she gets a guaranteed follow-up attack and +6 attack. Brave Micaiah's Yune's Whispers is pretty powerful, but it relies on enemies being next to each other. Yune herself has Chaos Named, which inflicts debuffs on enemies within 3 columns centered on Yune. This ability is so strong because while it inflicts a stat debuff that changes depending on the enemy, Yune doesn't care, she just needs any debuff. You can see that Grand Hero battles like the Death Knight or Walhart one have very vertical maps, and Yune just sends her long range debuffs down half the map. This enables her to get a guaranteed follow-up attack, and if I'm being honest, that is a lot stronger than just trying to outspeed an enemy. I have been using Yune a lot in Grand Hero battles because of this ability, and since there's not really any distant counter threats in PvE, Yune can get her 2 hits off on melee enemies. I will need to use Brave Micaiah more, but I definitely do not think she outclasses Yune. They are similar units, just with different specialties. Micaiah gets to nuke certain foes, while Yune's long range debuffs get her guaranteed follow-ups, and it's a nice way to enable other debuff reliant units like Harid. Overall, I think Brave Micaiah is a great pick if you want a flying mage. My only real complaint is that I'll probably replace attack and res bond with just death blow. It's a strong skill if you need to tank mages, but to squeeze as much one-shot potential out of her, I want to be able to get extra attack without having to worry about nearby allies. Ground orders and other flyer mobility skills help remedy this, but still, for things like Grand Hero battles where you want to be offensive, it's not really what you need. I'm pretty happy to complete the Micaiah collection, at least for now, and I've had a lot of fun with the short time I've tested her out. While she pretty much does the same job as the other colored Micaiahs, I will have to get a heavy debuff team going with her. You can see that when I do get the attack and res debuffs on one enemy, Micaiah just does a ton of damage. Do I think she is going to overtake the game like Brave Lynn or Veronica? No, at least not in their same dominating fashion. I can definitely see Brave Micaiah being good for PvE content because, as you can see here, when the situation calls for it, she is a fantastic counter pick. I am happy with my selection, and hopefully I can nab the other Brave heroes before they leave. Thanks for watching, I'll see you guys in the next video.